We start with America's latest mass shooting. Overnight, the death toll from the Louisville bank massacre rising to 5. 8 others wounded, including 2 police officers. The gunman, a bank employee, opening fire on his colleagues inside a conference room.
ABC News correspondent Trevor Ault is live in Louisville, Kentucky for us now. Trevor, let's start with the latest and what more do we know about what has happened here?
Well, Phil, good afternoon. So what we've learned today from the mayor of Louisville is that this shooter had an AR-15, at least according to the mayor. He is, as you mentioned, an employee of this bank. Officials say he arrived actually before the bank was open to the public, a little bit after 8:30 yesterday. But because so many employees were there in that conference room for a meeting, according to witnesses, he simply walked into the conference room and opened fire, and chaos immediately ensued, with some people, of course, being shot, others fleeing, hiding, locking themselves in the bathroom, some in the break room. Some others were reportedly hiding inside the vault. Now, officials say police were on the scene within 3 minutes of receiving that first phone call. They rushed in and then were in a shootout with this shooter. They eventually shot and killed him, putting an end to this rampage within minutes. But still, even in just minutes, we heard those 5 people were killed. Several others were injured. More than a dozen casualties in this mass shooting. And today, the entrance of the bank is boarded up. But we've actually just noticed, if you see behind me here, you have crews that are working to repair a window in the side of the building here, likely shot out in this rampage, guys.
And Trevor, we know there was a note. We know he live streamed the shooting. Do we know anything more about what the shooter was doing in those hours before?
I mean, that's still definitely one of our main questions, Eva. We've heard from our sources that he was informed relatively recently, not necessarily yesterday morning, that he was going to be fired. And this is a man who had worked at this bank for several years, first as an intern, according to his LinkedIn profile. Then he was made a full-time employee. He was even promoted relatively recently. And while what we've heard from our sources is the contents of that note that he left behind to his parents, to his friends, did indicate that he planned to shoot up the bank, we're still trying to learn those exact details from officials of what his motive specifically was. And I can tell you that we have spoken with some former employees of this bank who knew this shooter, and they say obviously everybody is shocked whenever a mass shooting like this occurred, but specifically they say this shooter did not fit what you would imagine is the stereotype of a shooter. They said this was not a young man with a temper. He was a nice young guy, that he had never shown any kind of rage or anything specifically about guns. It is confusing a lot of the people who worked here, who of course are devastated, and we're still waiting to get some of those updates as to actually how this massacre was carried out, guys.
Trevor, among the injured is 26-year-old rookie police officer Nicholas Wilt, not even on the force, we understand, for 2 weeks. He was shot in the head and has since undergone brain surgery. What are you hearing? What do you know about the latest on his condition?
Well, obviously, Phil, anytime someone undergoes brain surgery, you know it is serious. And the last we've heard from officials is that while his condition is stable, he does remain in critical condition. And we are expecting to hopefully get some new details about his condition as the rest of the day plays out. But I mean, you said it, this was a brand new officer. According to officials, he just graduated from the police academy 11 days ago. The police chief talked yesterday about how she had just sworn him in, and he was so new, actually, he wasn't even cleared to be on patrol on his own. He was out with a field training officer as well. And then when this massacre was reported, both of them came rushing in to stop this shooter. Of course, Nicholas Wilt then shot in the head. We are anxiously awaiting those updates. And that's something that we've been hearing from a lot of these officials. They personally know all of the victims in this shooting. It really is unique in that circumstance.
And Trevor, you talk about those victims. They range in age from 40 to 64 years old. Is there anything more that you can tell us about them?
Well, all of those victims who were killed so far, Eva, appear to be bank employees, all 5 of them, and we're watching closely those other people who were injured critically, because there could be more victims who do not survive. They're fighting for their lives right now. All the employees that we talked to said this was an incredibly tight-knit bank. This was an incredibly important part of this community. And what is really unique is you're hearing from officials, you're hearing from the governor of Kentucky talking about how one of the people who was killed, the vice president of the bank here, Tommy Elliott, was one of the governor's closest friends. Their friendship goes back decades. The mayor saying that he knew several of these people personally. Obviously, every mass shooting that occurs impacts a community deeply. Then you have families and you have friends who are grieving. In this instance, we're hearing from a lot of them directly because they are in charge of the response to it. But yet again, we have another community who is grieving from a mass shooting. This is America's 15th mass shooting in the first 10 days of the month of April, guys.
So many mass shootings. Trevor Ault for us there in Louisville. Our thanks to you, Trevor.
Well, hey there. there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.